Welcome back into the Cowboys Report, another live edition. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris Daughtry, behind the scenes for today's show. We asked you guys last week, do you want to spend more time on draft, free agency trades? Majority voted for free agency, so we'll spend a lot of time on free agency. Both outside potential options for the Cowboys and, of course, their own players set to hit the open market. And we begin with Osa Odighizuwa. The franchise tag window will open up tomorrow. That will be on Tuesday. It'll run until after the Combine into early March before free agency begins. Would you use the franchise tag on Osa Odighizuwa? That will cost the Cowboys, by the way, around $23 million. A little bit more than that, actually. So would you use the tag on Osa? Or if there's somebody else you have in mind, feel free to let me know in the comments as well with that, if there's a player you have in mind. We'll go through some of the top candidates beyond Osa, too, on today's video. Would you use the franchise tag on Osa at that $23 million price point? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Ecuador Man says no. Jacoby Mitchell says no. Timon says no. Edwin, Gill, Gary Raven, all typing in their no's as well. But the yeses are winning the pin poll right now. 57% on the yes side. So keep those votes coming. JT says, Osa's good. Is he game-breaking tag good? I have issues doing a one-year contract for Osa Odighizuwa at $23 million. And it's actually 23 and change, to be clear. The reason being is you have no flexibility when it comes to how you structure said contract. It's $23 million on the cap. Now, if you work out a long-term deal, okay, cool, whatever, that changes things significantly. But paying that much for 1 year of a good, but I would question if he's an elite-level defensive tackle, gets dicey for me. And that is why I tend to vote no. Even though I do think he is your best defensive tackle by a massive margin. The bar is incredibly low there. And it would be a huge need for you, and there is downside to not tagging him. I think you might be able to be aggressive for once in free agency and use that $23 million in a variety of ways. So get those votes in. Y for yes, N for no. Would you use the franchise tag on Osa? Go vote in the comments and in the pinned poll of today's show. Y for yes, N for no. It's opinion-based. It's no right or wrong answer. Bryce, let Osa walk. Anything over $15 million a year. We'd rather have DJ Jones, Kinlaw, and a draft pick at DT, plus a linebacker like Bolton, Green, Spillane. That's kind of where I land on as well. I don't know if you can get those exact players, but I think the idea of like run-stopping defensive tackle, cheaper 3 technique, who's not as good, but cheaper, top 75 pick at defensive tackle, and sprinkle some money at linebacker, that intrigues me. Because if I can get him on, 3 years, $15 million a year, okay, it's, that's 4 years, $15 million, probably more likely. Like, that's interesting. I wonder if he could get a lot more than that, given the not great overall free agency market. So if I can spend that money on 2 defensive linemen, aren't as good individually, but combined, you kind of get closer to the same ballpark, that, I think you can very much talk me into that one. We'll also talk Amari Cooper on today's show, and acknowledging that I do wonder just how not burnt that bridge is, let's put it that way. Would you bring him back? S for sign, P for pass. Let me know in the comments section of today's video. I'll give some shout-outs here as well as I sip some water. P from Luis, let's go. S's from Gil, Zachary, Eugene. P's from Joseph, Edwin. P from Ecuador Man. S from Frederick Davis. Turks S, but not going to happen. J says S, but still draft the receiver high. I think you might pick one or the other there. Unless you could actually fill all of your needs in free agency for one time and then just take pure BPA, then let's talk. But obviously we don't know that until after free agency gets going. P's from Dylan, Vic, Edmund, Tim, Hoodlum, Edward says S, Kenneth says, so a bit more 50-50 on that one. Now, outside free agents only count for this next question, and I'm curious how the number tracks in the end. How many players do you think the Cowboys actually sign in free agency? Outside the organization. I think they'll sign a couple. Now, does a couple mean 2 or 3, Or does it mean 5 or 6? And that's a very big difference in the level of question there. So how many players do the Cowboys sign in free agency? I see 2, 3, 2, 2, 5, 2, 5, 3, 4 practice squatters from Turd. -0, 2, a third string back, and a fourth string DT. So A.J. Dillon and, I don't know, can't think of a fourth string DT off that big. I don't know. Bring back Jordan Phillips from the select. 5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3, 4. 2 on offense, 2 on defense. 7 from JT. It would be a lot of fun if one time we got to sit up here in March and be like, hey, they spent some money on a player. We're excited about that. Yeah, maybe we're talking ourselves into excitement, but at least it's like we signed a good player instead of they signed Zeke, yay. You know, like Kendricks. Give me 5 Eric Kendricks-esque players, and I will be slightly more satisfied than what I've been the past 2, 3, whatever it is, years. 3 or 4, 4, 4, 4, 2. By the way, I am not counting undrafted free agents, by the way. I am not counting that. That is cheating because they'll sign like 15 or so. That one I don't. Let me pull this up here. Because they're going to sign. It's going to get to 90. They're at 54 right now. So they'll probably have like 10 draft picks. They'll probably sign 15 players in undrafted free agency. If they can like retain 6 guys and sign 5 somewhere, or maybe it's a little bit more, a little bit less on that. Maybe that's where you're at in the end. JT, you have to pick one, Stephon Diggs or Amari Cooper. As long as Stephon Diggs is okay being a number 2, I think he has more left in the tank, even coming off the injury. Which maybe you can get yourself the old incentive-based deal that the Jones boys love. I think I'd lean towards Diggs. I think there are real concerns with both guys, though. Very valid concerns, too. Now, our goal is a 50% like ratio on all of our shows here on the Cowboys Report. We get to the 50% before I ask for it, beer bong. Not like, once we're like 10 minutes in. None of that nonsense of, I like the video the first time it comes out, and then that's 1 like for 1 viewer. No, we're not doing that stuff. Like the video. Free, simple, easy. Appreciate all your support. Likes are simple. So please and thank you. Help us out by liking today's show. Coming up on today's live edition of the Cowboys Report, news and rumors. We'll talk contracts and free agency stuff here. Free agency rumors as well. A lot of buzz out there. Some of it credible, some of it not credible. A mailbag, 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys, or if you want to skip the line like JT and Bryce and others did, use that super chat. For today, the $50 beer bong offer is available. And we'll run through some free agent targets, specifically on offense. I've got 30 names, that some on the upper end of their price scale, some much more feasible for the Cowboys. All coming live here on the Cowboys Report. Before we get into today's show, Giants now host Marshall Green. Bet that we could not get past his monthly high on likes. That's 1,803 is what he's got. So 1,804 is the number to beat on today's show. Let's crush it. And once again, make sure it's F. Marshy once and for all. Like that video if you haven't already, please, and thank you. The NFL franchise tag window opens on February 18th. That is Tuesday. And then runs until 4 p.m. Eastern on Monday, March 4th. So the question is, and it's what ESPN's Archer looked at, will the Cowboys end up using the tag? Archer wrote that defensive lineman Osa Odighizuwa is the only candidate the Cowboys would consider, but a projected cost of more than $23 million against the tag makes that probably just too pricey. However, that does not mean the Cowboys won't make a bid to re-sign him. The other tackle is important in Matt Eberflus's new scheme. Osa posted career highs in sacks and, most importantly, pressures last season, and is the type of player the Cowboys want to build with. A third-round draft pick, immediate starter, over-the-top worker, and excellent in the locker room. The money, of course, is the big factor here. And I think Osa's underlying performances, not just the raw box score stats, if that makes sense, do indicate a player on the rise who has not yet hit his ceiling, who does fit very well with the Matt Eberflus system, and plays a position that the Cowboys have no other reliable options right now, truly reliable options on the defensive line. Even if the Cowboys retain Osa Odighizuwa, I am looking at a situation where I want to have multiple players added to this defensive line room. I don't want to just have Osa, Mozzie, and a bunch of August additions. I want to add 2 or 3 more, depending on what you do with Osa. Now, the money for Osa is a $23.47 million franchise tag. It's a lot of money. There's no flexibility with how that counts on your salary cap, barring an extension, and it's probably not enough wiggle room. That becomes one of your highest cap hits by a pretty comfortable margin there. Other players of note, Eric Kendricks is at $27 million because the NFL is stupid, and linebackers count as like TJ Watt factors into the linebacker franchise tag number. 2025, guys, come on. By the way, Chauncey Golston is just a bit over Osa at 24 and change. Rico Dowdle's at 13.63. I love Jordan Lewis, but I'm not paying him $20 million. Even the punter, Brian Anger, at 6.56 is probably just a little bit too much. So I don't want to use the franchise tag on Osa, even though I would like to try to extend him, and if not, sign 2 other players in free agency. I just think the franchise tag cost is prohibitive for what the Cowboys have set up this offseason. What do you think, though? Would you use the franchise tag on Osa or someone else? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Y for yes or N for no. If the outcome's here on YouTube, take advantage. Head down there and go vote. Now, of note, 2 players have their contracts void today per over the cap. It is DeMarcus Lawrence, the defensive end, and Brandin Cooks, the wide receiver. So, again, you can't really use the franchise tag if the contract's void before the franchise tag window opens. That's not an accident there. Both of them will hit free agency as expected, by the way. This is not a surprise. This is not even uncommon with the way the NFL operates with void contracts becoming more and more popular. In fact, over 30 different players have this happening today. They are, by the way, still eligible for comp pick. So if they leave in free agency and sign somewhere else, you can still get a comp pick. It almost operates in the end as we're not going to have to pay extra money for, in the time being, we push some of that money off, and in the future we'll break those numbers down a little bit. And it allows the players to not have to jeopardize a franchise tag. It's normally veteran players who end up who are worth some decent chunk of change, who have these void years here. So we'll break down the futures overall of Tank Lawrence and Brandin Cooks. But first, today's show is made possible by the Tushy Bidet. Look, I am a dude. I spend a decent amount of time on the throne, and that's why I like Tushy. It is the modern bidet attachment that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and butt health for life. Instead of wiping yourself raw with toilet paper, Tushy gently removes 99% of bacteria while protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to one natural ingredient. It's fresh water. Tushy also has 2 new ultra-sleek bidet seats, Wave and Oasis, with front and rear wash to clean all those hard-to-reach places. The Tushy Wave and Oasis bidets easily attach to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity, and they have a quick release button to remove the seat for instant deep cleaning. Installation is simple. It takes 10 minutes to complete, and anyone can do it. The Tushy Bidet gives you 2-in-1 benefits, reducing the irritation and preventing micro tears with soothing water instead of scratchy toilet paper or damaging wet wipes. They also have a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. There's still time to get your ass right for life. For a limited time, you guys get 10% off your first bidet order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com/chat with promo code CHAT. Let's talk more players here. Brandin Cooks, it never worked the way we wanted it to, did it? At times, I don't think he was implemented properly by the coaching staff and the schematics. He missed a lot of time this year due to injury. He'll probably command all of 1 year, $5-ish million on the open market. But I want to keep the Brandin Cooks roster spot open because I want to have a spot that I can fill with a better, ideally more younger, impactful wide receiver. I don't want to lock myself into the same receiving core as last year. DeMarcus Lawrence, meanwhile, has always been a good defensive end. He's a great run stopper. He gets pressures. He's always been one of your better, he made a play on third down. Might not be a sack, but it was a pass breakup. He got the pressure, led to an incomplete pass. But he's also battled a lot of injuries. Makes his market very much an unknown. Now, the dead cap hits for both these players are as follows. It'll have $7.45 million in dead money from Tank Lawrence this year, $4 million from Brandin Cooks. Those guys also played the lifetimes of their contracts, and any unused salary cap space rolls over. This is what you would almost call healthy dead money. Kind of like cholesterol. There actually is good cholesterol, so my doctor tells me. That's kind of what this is. It's bad dead money when you cut them after like 2 years. Like the Michael Gallup money is bad dead money. This dead money was all, they played lifetimes of their contracts. Now, if you wanted to keep one of them, and I think none or both are valid answers here, pick one to keep. DL for DeMarcus Lawrence, BC for Brandin Cooks. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I also want to mention the futures of the safeties here. John Machado of The Athletic says it's likely the Cowboys end up keeping both Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker this offseason. The Athletic kind of going through one cut candidate for each team, and Machado mentioned Wilson, saying it's more likely that Wilson remains on the team, but if there is going to be a salary cap cut in Dallas, the safety position stands out. The other option would be safety Malik Hooker, who also started every game last season. But again, the Cowboys will probably keep both. But the two starting safeties would be candidates if a cut had to happen. We'll go more in depth on both of these players, but if you have not already, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. We'll have free Cowboys videos for you each and every single day right here on the channel. Normally, multiple times per day as well. Let's go to Donovan Wilson, who, again, we've mentioned both of these guys as potential cut candidates in the past, and for good reason. When Wilson is on his game, he is very impactful. He makes plays, the sack numbers, the pass breakups, the forced fumbles. When Donovan Wilson plays well, the Cowboys normally play well on defense. It's one of the role players having a big game. But he's been inconsistent. He's been streaky. He's been frustrating at times. Of note, Cowboys would save $5.85 million if they cut Donovan Wilson, $7.5 after June 1st. Not a huge difference there, but did want to make note of it. Then there's Malik Hooker, who has kind of been a little bit of the opposite of Donovan Wilson, where he's been fairly steady. There just haven't been enough big plays for me. The interception, the two interceptions were kind of just like, he was in the right place. Not like he's showing insane range, making a bunch of elite-level plays on the football. In general, I like but don't love this safety grouping. That's why, hey, if you can save the $3.75 million by cutting Malik Hooker, I think you'd have to have consideration for that. I will also make notes, by the way. He's got a $5.5 million base salary. That will guarantee about a month from now. So if you get to that 3/16 date, Hooker's on the roster, he ain't going anywhere. Also got to figure out your backups. Wanye Thomas and Marquise Bell. Guys I wanted to see more of last year. It's an RFA and an ERFA. They'll bring back Wanye Thomas. That's just a no-brainer. The RFA side with Bell, see what the price tag looks like, but I would guess he's back on top of that. And at least those four are good. Are they good enough for what you're paying them, though? Now, it is President's Day, so are you off work today? Obviously, we are not. Chris and I took Sunday off, though. So are you off work today, and are you enjoying your federal holiday? Y for yes, N for no. Not everyone gets President's Day off, I suppose. Yeah, banks and whatnot do. So get those votes in. Y for yes, N for no. Ecuador man took today off. Jace, Turd, Robert, Simba. Oh, Turd's retired. Oh, every day's an off day for you then, man. Fernando says no. Richard says yes. Tay says no. I like all the people saying no who are clearly watching at work. I will never snitch. Never snitch. Get those votes in. Y for yes, N for no. JT, personally think the free agency will be better than normal. Think 2020 they had a new head coach. They signed a lot, even Brandon Carr. Well, that was not 2020. That was different. Like I should say, the real time that they signed Brandon Carr, not the other time they brought Brandon Carr back on. And then again, that was in that part. The second time for Brandon Carr was in 2020, but they didn't sign until like August or something, and that like doesn't count. Or maybe it was in September. I don't remember. Like those, that does not count. But I do think you could be honest with me that, new head coach, new DC, they'll bring in some new players. And hopefully it isn't as bad as that class where the big splash was Gerald McCoy And he had the clause in his contract for a pre-existing injury and ended up making it worse, and that really stunk across the board. And then Dontari Poe took Fatty's only too literally, which I will always be upset about because he shouldn't have been. He was too serious about being fat, and that was an issue, and it's why he flamed out of the league very, very quickly. But I get your overall point there, JT. I think it's a pretty solid one, too. By popular request, we're talking free agency today for the Dallas Cowboys. A couple groups of players I want to discuss. Several Dolphins players getting cut over the weekend. Want to break down if they make any sense for Dallas. T. Higgins, as ESPN is pushing that one again for the Dallas Cowboys, and Amari Cooper. Now, if you want us to be live for NFL free agency, I know I certainly do, type me in the comment section of today's show. Couple of different Dolphins were cut on Friday. Raheem Mostert, who, if you watched our live show on the trade targets, we put him in there and had to delete him from the trade video once it went out later on demand because he got cut in between the live show and that video going out. Kendall Fuller and Durham Smythe. I won't spend time on Durham Smythe. They already have that type of player. Let's go to Mostert, though. And with his release by the Dolphins, I am kind of intrigued by this front. The comp pick game is such that if players are cut, they don't impact your formula. That could always be intriguing for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the big question is, which Raheem Mostert do you get? 2024 version didn't do anything for you. Wasn't good. Didn't put up any production at all. The 2023 version that was averaging almost 5 yards per carry, that had the NFL high 21 touchdowns, had 1,000 yards on not really that high of a sample size in terms of like volume of carries, was really intriguing. The 2022 one was also really good. Here's my concern. Mostert and his overall profile coming out of college was he's not the biggest guy, but he's fast. Ran sub 4.4 40-yard dash. He is now going to be 33 years old in April. He's coming off a bad year. And at that particular age, that should raise red flags for you. So I do have some interest, but even if I'm adding Raheem Mostert and, in this case, replacing Rico Dowdle in this hypothetical since Dowdle's going to be a free agent, I would very much still be trying to add a premium draft pick. This is bigger, maybe better version of like the Ronald Jones signing from a few seasons ago. I think better, but you're not set in stone with him as a key part of your offense. So would you sign Raheem Mostert? It would be a one-year deal. Let's say it's like $2 million. Why for yes and for no? It is the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Kendall Fuller, also released by the Miami Dolphins in what was a cap-clearing move. The Dolphins hit the few $1 million, saved even more in terms of the cash being spent there. Fuller was, over the course of his career, and still I think was for the most part in Miami last year, a fine player. He had some of his better years back in 2022, even 2023 to an extent. Would break up a pass per game. That's valuable stuff. Was hurt this year. And one thing you got to vet and figure out is, okay, what happened to that knee? Was the knee an issue? Because the knee cost him some games down the stretch this year. How bad that knee injury is moving forward is a pretty valid question mark. I like the idea of what Kendall Fuller can offer me. He can be a potential starter if Trayvon Diggs needs more time to recover from his injury. If you lose Jordan Lewis and need that veteran outside corner, given the fact that Diggs and Butler are coming off of injuries, and the only guys healthy under contract right now are Deron Bland, Kalen Carson, Andrew Booth, Troy Pride, and Kamon Hall. The idea of adding a cheap veteran corner who can sub in and be a stopgap starter for me and doesn't break the bank, cost maybe a few $1 million, that is interesting to me. I like that idea. I think that makes sense. It's a good business decision. It's a good roster management asset. But this player is also coming off a knee injury and missed time last year and is getting up there in age. And do you trust him to stay healthy? The idea, yes. This might not be the best application of said idea, though. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. The basketball season's set to get back underway. Baseball also here, by the way. It's available in over 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Riding with my boy Jack Lauderay and his slightly homer pick of Durant home runs. But I'm doing the flex play. That way, if I get one wrong, I still come out on top. You can cash out if your lineup is not perfect. So go download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Prize Picks. Run your game. I'm a little annoyed we're doing this, but when ESPN talks about stuff, it ends up being a very popular talking point. The worldwide leader in silly takes, that's what the S stands for in ESPN, is pushing the idea of the Cowboys signing T. Higgins in free agency. So it's our old frenemy, and it's not really the friend part. Mike Tannenbaum says the best year of Dak's career, arguably, was when he had Amari Cooper as the number 2. Everyone has taken away CeeDee Lamb, and boy, if you could bookend him with T. Higgins, that changes the entire complexion of the offense. Now, ESPN, I think it's SportsCenter, Matt Berry said there's going to be so many suitors for T. Higgins, and Dallas will absolutely be one of those. Like you said a moment ago, CeeDee Lamb, kind of a one-man wolf pack. I think you need someone to pair him up. Him up with Lamb in Dallas. I have thoughts here. I have a lot of thoughts in terms of how big media continues to make this somehow be a national talking point, not just for Dallas, but for a variety of teams. But of course, it's the Cowboys Report, so we'll spend more time on that front. Before I get to my thoughts here, what is the % chance you think the Dallas Cowboys actually get T. Higgins? Honest answers for me in the comments section of today's show. The national ESPN-led narrative idea of T. Higgins to the Dallas Cowboys, simply put, is wildly unrealistic, and I would actually argue silly to suggest so. The S in ESPN stands for silly, I guess, and that's a nice way of me saying stupid. There will be a lot of interest in T. Higgins, including, of course, by his current team. That is why they're going to use the franchise tag on T. The Bengals aren't as dumb as some people might want them to be. Like the Patriots, I'm sure, would love him to hit the open market. I would fully anticipate the Bengals franchise tag T. Higgins, at minimum, try to work out a long-term deal because Higgins changed agents to one that is not as, team challenging to work with. The $26.2 million tag is less than he'll likely get on the open market in free agency. I think it is far more likely the Bengals simply pay T. Higgins, that he never sniffs NFL free agency. And even in the event that he does, if Higgins hits free agency, the Bengals say, we will consider tag and trade options. There are teams that don't have a number 1 receiver that are desperate for one and have more money and more salary cap space and more willing to spend their cash on a receiver than Dallas is. The Cowboys are not and have not been a team that enters and wins bidding wars. That's not what they do. To borrow an NBA term, they only spend the mid-level exception every year. They don't spend the max contract free agent money. And frankly, for T. Higgins, with this team, I don't want to. I love T. He is an awesome football player. When T and Chase and Burrow are out there, that is basically the best offense in football. Higgins can't play an entire season either. He always misses time. He's not going to stay and do 16-game seasons. That's not who he's been when he's young. He's only going to get older. Now, it makes sense for the Bengals to pay him. I don't want to drop $28 million per year on T. Higgins when I'm paying CeeDee Lamb $35 and I got to pay Micah $35 plus. I'll spend that money at a variety of other spots. Now, we will have more Cowboys free agency coverage for you right here on the channel. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. Let's talk Amari Cooper and his potential return. The 33rd team listing the Cowboys as the best free agency landing spot for Amari Cooper, in part because he once was a Cowboy. I have no doubts that was a big factor in the conversation and in the consideration for putting Amari in Dallas as a potential landing spot here. Amari wasn't as good this year. In fact, he kind of really fell off. His numbers essentially got cut in half, especially from a yards per catch perspective. He had 1,200 plus yards in Cleveland in 2023. In between the Bills and the Browns, it was less than 600. And figuring out why is a big factor in that. Age and just general decline in play is a factor. Now, we'll talk about the bridge stuff here and the relationship, but would you bring back Amari Cooper? S for sign, P for pass. Here are the career numbers at all 4 of the stops for Amari Cooper. He was at his best, by far, in Dallas. Maybe not by far being a little bit disrespectful to his Raiders time, but overall was better in Dallas. Better than he was in Cleveland, better than he was in Buffalo. I don't think you're going to get number 1 caliber wide receiver Amari Cooper anymore. I don't even think that's going to happen. But if he can be a better number 2 receiver, I'm intrigued. I am also questioning how he fits with what the new Cowboys offense will look like, because it is going to be different. I also have my biggest question on this. How's the relationship? Amari was, difficult maybe isn't fair to him, but that is how the front office and the coaching staff viewed it, that he wasn't always just doing things what they asked him to do at all times. He was always banged up in some capacity, would have multiple road games here. He went MIA. All of those things are true. And Amari probably didn't like getting bodied by the front office on his way out of Dallas. I don't think McCarthy leaving alone fixes that relationship. And it might not be one either side really wants to potentially renew. But that type of veteran receiver who could still be a number 2 potentially for you, that's the type of player the Cowboys should consider this offseason. All right, mailbag coming up next here on the Cowboys Report. 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether. Super chat. We've got what? Joe, We Don't Wife, Gizmo, Nick. Got a lot of supers in there. I like that. Yeah. Get some water in there as my old age means my throat dries out a little more than it should, which is also phrasing. But we got super thanks and super chats to get to on today's show. So get them in via hashtag Cowboys. Put you in the queue for producer Chris to find your question, or super chat and skip that line. A $10 super thanks from Tony. Keep up the good work, Tom. Go Cowboys. Thanks. I appreciate that, Tony. Thank you very much, my friend. That one and some others we'll get to in a second came in via super thanks. It is a feature here on YouTube that allows you to edit a message, send it. It's like a super chat, but you don't have to be live for it. Just a normal comment you can do. Click that little heart with the $sign icon if you're watching on demand and not live right now. This is obviously part of a live mailbag. But any message you send in, we'll give you some love. As long as you don't commit an ism, we'll show you some love because we appreciate your support here at the Cowboys Report. Mighty Ants 0215. Had to ask you, can you flip Kentucky's Deion Walker to O-line if he moves that well? I know it's going to be challenging, but hey, it's actually kind of a unique question and a clever one too. Walker did play offensive line in high school, and there were colleges that wanted to play offensive line, not defensive line. He wanted to be a defensive lineman. I think that's a big factor in this. Also, 3-4 years later, it's really hard to find examples of that severe of a position change, especially a guy to be spending a top 75 pick on. The closest example I can think of is Cowboys legend Jerron Jones was a Notre Dame defensive lineman, undrafted free agent. Giants made him into a tackle, and he's carved out a UFL career. That's not a good return on your investment, though, if you spend a top 75 pick on a defensive lineman. So I'm keeping him a DT and trying to get that pad level lower. Eric Ramsey, once I heard brought to you by CJ. You'll see CJ in a minute, by the way. Had to give a super thanks. If you're the GM of the Cowboys, you had to choose one. Who'd you trade for? Cooper Kupp or DK Metcalf? I like this question. It's a tough one for me. I think what they do on the field overall, I think DK Metcalf brings you more. He's more athletic, brings you more vertical speed. I think from that element, he fits with what the Cowboys need. If the Cowboys were going to do some more tight splits on offense and try to be a more, run the ball when teams dare us to team, I do think Cooper Kupp actually fits that pretty well. Both guys are expensive. Kupp's due, depending on how much the Rams eat, $12.5 to $20 million. Metcalf's due like 18 or 17, something like that. He's also probably going to want a new contract. So I think balancing all of that, I think DK's the better player right now. I think from an ability to get them on your team right now, Cooper Kupp's more feasible from a likelihood and from a cost perspective. That doesn't really answer the question, though. If you could have one of these guys on your team right now, who would it be? Which I think I prefer DK of the two, but I think Kupp's a lot more feasible. CK for Cooper Kupp, DK for DK Metcalf. Go vote the pinned comment of today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube. CJ DeYoung. I told you he'd be here. I'm not a liar. This is in reference to Jerry Jones' comments. He's delusional, Tom. It's 30 freaking years, Jerry. Wake up. You're an idiot as a GM. Thank you. And more Jerry hate here from my guy CJ. My only hope is that I outlive Jerry and Steven. Maybe a grandkid can do better. Thanks. John Stevens Jones was one of Steven's kids. He's in the sales department right now for the Cowboys. And I'm pretty sure is the one who tried to advocate in favor of Caleb Von Chasen over CeeDee Lamb in that draft. So, Charlotte, save us. All right, Joe, Luther Burden or Tyler Warren? This is another good question. I like this one. Independent of position, I think Tyler Warren is a better football player than Luther Burden. But you can have the coverage about, do you need a number 2 receiver or do you need a number 2 playmaker? That would advocate more on the Tyler Warren side. The other angle is tight ends often take a bit longer to develop. So I think I'm always a big deal. I got to take the best player available, right? I would love Luther Burden. Warren's higher on my board. Got to go that one. We don't wife these 304s. Imagine having 800,000 tweets. Generational day on X. I don't have 800. How many tweets do I have? I don't have that many. There's no way I have that many. I don't know how many tweets I have. Who's got 800,000 tweets? Someone's doing something silly, I bet. I appreciate it, though, my friend. Eric, back to you again for another super thanks. Another would you rather question that I really liked. Would you get Hampton from UNC or Caleb Johnson from Iowa? I would personally like it if we got Hampton. My mindset is yes. If you can give me one of those guys in the second round, I would not be upset. There are some similarities in their game. They're not built that different. Hampton's like 6 foot 219, and I think Caleb Johnson has like 6 pounds on him, if that. I think that Hampton might have a little bit better size speed combination, but it's not by a lot. Neither guy is a super elite burner. I think both guys could be 1,000-yard players in the NFL. I would be happy with either of those guys in round 2. I think Hampton is a better runner right now, but both those guys would be great picks in the second. So who would you rather have? OH for Marion Hampton, KJ for Caleb Johnson. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Gizmo2703. Here's a question. Will we be live the first day of the draft? If so, will we be live all day long? We will be live for the NFL draft. So again, just make sure you guys are subscribed. Simple, easy. We will be live at various points throughout all 3 days of the NFL draft. We'll have some simulcast with me over on the main chat sports stream as well, I presume. But we will have live coverage for you. I promise you. From Joe, where was Kalen Carson after week 8? Was he hurt? Yeah, he was hurt. Now, I will say, I think part of that injury was he's not playing well, so let's just put him on the sideline and not, have to play him. They didn't think he was fully ready. I think had some confidence issues too, frankly. So he was banged up. They liked him lock him out of Wake Forest. He was a day 3 pick. Played like a day 3 pick where he was drafted on what they thought he could be. So it's going to be a kind of a wash year in the end for Carson. Today's show is made possible by Tushy, the modern bidet attachment that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and butt health for life. Instead of wiping yourself raw with toilet paper, Tushy gently removes 99% of bacteria while protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to one natural ingredient. It's fresh water. They have 2 ultra sleek bidets, Wave and Oasis, with front and rear wash to clean all those hard to reach places. The Tushy Wave and Oasis bidets easily attach to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. They also have a quick release button to remove the seat for instant deep cleaning. It is easy to use and takes about 10 minutes to complete, by the way, in terms of the installation. Your time on the throne may vary in terms of the length. Sit down, do your business, turn the knob for a refreshing stream of clean water, and once you're done, simply pat dry with TP. People who have made the switch to Tushy use up to 80% less TP. There's no clogged toilets, and they save your money and your rear end at the same time. There is still time. Get your ass right for life. For a limited time, you guys get 10% off your first bidet order when you use code CHATSPORTS over at tushy.com/chatsports. HelloTushy.com/chatsports. That's 10% off your first bidet order at HelloTushy.com/chat with code CHAT. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. A $5 super chat from Nick Morissette. Looking at how defensive end, how much for Golston and Lawson, giving us our 4 base guys. What's a name in 5 rotation piece? D-Law's not coming back. Last year is soft. I don't think he's soft, actually. I think that was a pretty bad foot injury. But the injuries are a real concern for him, so that's fine. I think Lawson's going to be very cheap. I think that might be like $1 or $2 million, maybe up to 3 with incentives. I don't think he'd be very expensive. Golston is probably a bit more so because he's younger. But I think if you were to run it back with Micah and Golston and Lawson and Sam Williams and Marshawn Nealon, I don't know if you need somebody else then. That's probably fine at defensive end, and you've probably got enough depth to get you through the season too. Max Finnegan, what are the odds the Cowboys sign Tyron Smith? He is old and cheap. I wonder if this is just going to be a retirement time for Tyron Smith. Like I might go with, maybe you go with like 90% he retires and signs, but it's a one-day contract to retire as a Dallas Cowboy. That might be the more likely outcome. He's already said he's considering retiring, calling it a career. He was banged up again last year, and he played fine when he was out there, but the injuries were, again, a pretty severe issue there. So I would not be surprised if he does sign, but it's a one-day contract to retire. It's a clever name, though, if he's willing to be cheap. And at Tyron Smith's age, being cheap might not be worth it for him. Now, if you want more Cowboys mailbags, hit that sub button. Free Cowboys videos each and every single day right here on the channel, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. From Bryce, if Davante Adams is cut, which do you prefer? Of Adams, Kupp, Diggs, Amari draft? I think the best receiver there is Davante Adams. He doesn't cost me draft capital. He's healthy. He's still impactful. He also might be the most expensive of that bunch. I'm just going to leave draft off of it because it's a totally different conversation for me. I might put them in the order you have them in. I'll say this. If Kupp is cut, with the likely being cheaper by a big margin over Davante Adams, that could vault him above like the 2-3 spot with Diggs. William Cook, would Jerry sell a percentage to private equity like the Eagles to build a Super Bowl team? It's a great question. I'm actually glad we got one of these. I didn't know if we were ever going to. What William's referring to is NFL teams are doing this now. They are now allowed to sell franchises a bit more frequently to like private equity groups and other minority owners. And what that does for them, instant influx of cash. And they can spend more money because, a $10 million evaluation, or $10 billion evaluation, I should say, they're buying in 2%. That's a lot of cash instantaneously added to your ability to spend money in free agency. You almost sell a little bit to build a better team. The Cowboys would never. Jerry Jones was not acting in his landman appearance. He was dead serious about it being a family business. And you don't sell part of the family business to outsiders. From Trevor, Will Kellen try to trade with Dak for Dak with the Saints? He can try. It's just not feasible. Doesn't make any financial sense for the Cowboys. Unless Dallas wants to rebuild for 2 or 3 years, eating $100 million plus of dead money isn't a very good idea. And also the Saints probably should not be that aggressive for a QB at that level because their roster is just not very good either. So in general, will the Cowboys make a trade this offseason? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. For me to wipe these 304s, is Tet starting to slip on boards? I don't think so. I think to an extent, sometimes what we run into here is everyone does mock drafts, and they're fun. I love doing them. They're awesome. I actively don't want to do the same draft picks in a mock draft over and over again. That's boring. So, if you're not mocking Tet to the Raiders at 6, and you don't mock him to the Panthers at 8, well, then it's like the Saints. And that's kind of how you get, he's probably not going to go 4 to the Patriots. I don't think. I think there's a chance he goes there. I think if anything's happened, some of the destinations have kind of slimmed down a bit. He's not going to go top 3. Patriots are the earliest. But if the Raiders don't need a receiver, don't go that route. Jets aren't going to go receiver. I doubt the Bears. I doubt the Niners do. It kind of shrinks down your destinations. And if you have one prediction of this team signing a receiver, shrinks down even further. That's why I think that someone like a McMillan has an outside chance to fall down to the Cowboys in this upcoming draft. Dwayne Jackson, how does this safety draft class and free agents look? How would you rank them? That's a good question. Free agent-wise, there are some guys that I'm really intrigued by. Javon Holland did not have the best season that I was hoping he was going to, which makes him a bit more affordable if you want to go down that path, right? Trayvon Merrick is a guy I've always liked out of TCU. A guy I wanted in round 2 over. I thought they were going to get him and not Kelvin Joseph, but sometimes things don't go your ways. Other veterans, I don't know if Harrison Smith, Justin Reed are going to end up leaving potentially. And then it's kind of like, okay, veterans who, if you cut somebody, make some sense. Justin Simmons. Bring back old buddy Xavier Woods, probably top 5 safety at free agent. Quandre Diggs has been out there. And then draft-wise, I do like a lot of the safeties in this year's class. I don't think you're going to want to spend the premium pick it would require to get you a Malachi Starks and probably not a Nick Manwari either. But I think Kevin Winston, Andrew Makuba, Xavier Watts, Notre Dame, even how you count Sebastian Cash as a safety or a nickel, Lathan Ransom on day 3. There's some good safeties, good high-end safety talent in this year's class. Would they take him that early? Hasn't been their MO in the past, though. What is your confidence level in the Cowboys right now? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. I expect some low answers on this one, because that's how it tends to go. Negative 69 right off the bat. I mean, I don't disagree. They have to earn that trust back for me. They have the ability. Don't let their propaganda fool you otherwise. They have the ability to spend more money in the open market. Are they going to choose to do that? I have doubts. So get those votes in your confidence level for me. 1 to 10, or you can go 0 if you want. Who cares? Free country. I assume you're watching from a free country, I guess. Get your votes in. 1 for 10 in the comment section of today's show. We already went through one overarching list of top free agents for the Dallas Cowboys. Now I want to break down 30 different targets on the offensive side of the ball. And it's also kind of 30-ish, which is 30 on the high side, and I'm cheating on a couple of players in there. This is offense only. If you want defensive draft targets, share the video for me. Twitter, or I guess X, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Share today's video if you want a breakdown of the defensive targets. Now, before we get going, some names that are too expensive / I don't know if they're going to actually hit the open market, especially T. Higgins. Sounds like he's going to get tagged. But Trey Smith and Ronnie Stanley are going to get $20+ million per year. Maybe not Stanley, but pretty close to it there. Chris Godwin is going to get big money even coming off the injury. I just doubt the Cowboys are going to even entertain spending at that level. Now, we will go position by position here. And I want to start on the interior. Now, you can argue center. I don't love the center free agency crop, so we'll look at guards here. In particular, right guards, replacing Zach Martin in free agency. First up is Will Hernandez. And there aren't a ton of overlapping players with new OC Clayton Adams. This one stands out to me. Hernandez made a very public comment at the Super Bowl saying how much he loved Clayton Adams, and the Cowboys got a good one in free agency, or on the coaching staff. Now he's a free agent, and he's coming off an injury. That's a red flag. But he's a powerful, run-blocking, mauling offensive guard who was playing pretty darn well before he got hurt. Hadn't allowed a sack or hit in pass protection all year and was doing a pretty good job as a run blocker. And most importantly for Dallas, we know he won't break the bank either. Now, someone who did make themselves some money, Mekhi Becton, the Eagles offensive guard, obviously got banged up in the Super Bowl, finally kind of took better coaching, better feedback, moved to right guard, changed his attitude, got Jeff Stoutland in there, had a great season. And I would not be surprised if someone throws him a pretty decent chunk of change on the open market. He clearly can play right guard, but be on the upper echelon of the price tag I think the Cowboys are willing to spend. James Daniels, offensive guard here from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's also played some center in the past, also coming off an injury. Injury that is very much a red flag and a concern for the Cowboys and other NFL teams. But Daniels played really well last year. He was off to an awesome start until he tore his Achilles in September. And that is going to make things complicated in terms of what his market is and when he can actually help you on the field. Other offensive guard from Arizona, Evan Brown, who I think could also contribute as he's played some more left guard but could do some right guard stuff for you. Maybe can pinch in at center as well. Same with Liam Eichenberg, who I'm going to cheat here because he's not just a guard. He's also played tackle. They tried him at center. Second-round pick, high draft-level impacts, or investment, I should say. Impact has not been particularly good from Liam Eichenberg. 53.1 overall PFF grade. Ask Dolphins fans how they feel about him, because hasn't always been good there. I want your predictions here. How many players do you think the Dallas Cowboys end up signing in free agency? 0? 7? What's the number? Outside players. Let me know at the pinned comment of today's show. Let's move to wide receivers here. Now, I want to move on from Brandin Cooks because I want to have that number 2 roster spot open for somebody else who is better. And there are several names that stand out. Stephon Diggs. We've talked about him. We'll probably keep talking about him. It's Trayvon Diggs' brother. He's got talent. He's coming off an injury. All those years of rumors have never made more sense probably than right now. Because he can come in, he can help you out. As long as he is willing to be a number 2, the contract cost might actually be affordable for the Dallas Cowboys. A name that once wanted to be a Cowboy. He changed his tune later, but he wanted to be a member of the Cowboys organization. Didn't work out at the time. Goes to Tennessee. It's DeAndre Hopkins. Then played for the Chiefs this past year. Had a brutal drop at the Super Bowl that was so unlike Hopkins' play. It was kind of shocking overall. Injuries, availability have also been a concern. That's a common theme for all these guys because, again, you ain't getting T. Higgins. Amari Cooper is next up. Could you do the reunion path? Maybe. Maybe not in the end. Amari is very much declined the past couple seasons. That is undoubtedly true. I think he can still help you as a number 2 wide receiver, though. And that's all. I'm not trying to sign and spend the cost of a wide receiver 1. But I am trying to make my receiver 2 spot better. Big question for Amari. How's that relationship between him and the Cowboys? Now, we'll see what ends up happening with Marquise Brown, the Chiefs wide receiver here. I like him. I think that there is a role that he can contribute and impact this organization and benefit as a speedy outside receiver who basically, did not play at all this past year. He played very, very limited amounts down the stretch, but he was not as dynamic, impactful, or the guy I thought he could be earlier in his career. But he fits that speedy outside threat the Cowboys don't really have. A cheaper version of that is Darius Slayton, the Giants wide receiver, who's put up 700-plus yards 2 seasons with bad quarterback play. 500, almost 600-plus last year. He fits that vertical, speedy archetype. You don't have that. That makes him not a home run receiver, too, but can at least fit a mold if you don't feel good about being able to get some of your other options out there. Now, how do you think the Cowboys should get wide receiver help? D for the draft, T for the trade market, or F for free agency? Some other cheaper wide receiver options who they may or may not be number 2s here. Elijah Moore, who has been up and down at best over the course of his career, had some drop issues the past 2 seasons, offers some fun, gadgety stuff at slot receiver. My issue with Elijah Moore is he's bigger, but I think like what you want to do with Kevontae Turpin probably has some overlap there. Some of you, justifiably, will not like this one. But Noah Brown is worth mentioning here. This is just an upgraded version of Jalen Brooks. He's kind of been the same-ish guy the past couple of seasons. Was super impactful in smaller sample size in 2023. Fewer games played, got more targets per game there. Also kind of regressed this past year, has been unable to stay healthy. If the Cowboys want someone who will block a bit as a receiver too, Noah Brown still fits that. I also will never forgive him for the drop against the Jags. Am I wrong for that? Probably, but that's just stuck in my mind. The Cowboys had interest last year in Zay Jones. Zay Jones did squat this past year. 8 catches, 84 yards, but knows the Clayton Adams, what he likes to do a bit on offense. So I'll mention him, but again, I'm including some of these names that go, okay, but why? Because that's how the Cowboys operate, right? Let's get some veteran receiver 2s, who I think are probably more receiver 3s or 4s. But if you want someone who's going to help you block more, which seems to be a factor for the Cowboys, Robert Woods stands out. He's had a long, long NFL career. You guys know that? He entered the NFL a very long time ago and has continuously found a way to carve out roles. The issue is Bobby Trees is set to turn 33 years old this year. He's spent 12 years already in the NFL, and he's had less than 600 yards each of the past 4 seasons. I don't know how much upside you're getting. Also is Mac Hollins, Bills wide receiver. Again, I'm fitting some roles here with Brown and Woods and Hollins. Big guys, they'll block for you. Now, Mac Hollins is a how do I put this delicately? Not a high-end impact receiver, but he does the dirty work for you. And he's got some size and vertical ability, but he's never going to be like, yeah, don't worry, we got receiver 2 locked up. We got Mac Hollins. No one ever feels like that. But he does help out a team. It's just a matter of how much you want to pay that. Again, it's what you were hoping to get more out of Jalen Brooks the past few seasons. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup is not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. For example, the baseball Prize Pick slate, our guy Jack Lauder-Ray cooked up here at Chat Sports. Homer pick with Duran more than homers. But I like going more thans for season-long stuff because they're healthy. They're going to end up hitting. Prize Picks available in 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Let's go to running backs here. You got very little right now under contract. Rico Dowdle's there, is a free agent. And that's what I'm really looking at here. How do you replace, if you lose him or try to upgrade over him, Rico Dowdle? Let's break down the names. Aaron Jones, who I would have loved to have gotten last year, and the Cowboys never really made a push for him. There has been some hints of decline. The yards per carry have dropped. Some of the big plays have gone down. Aaron Jones is very much getting up there in age. I do wonder just how much more juice he has left in the tank at this point. He's going to be 31 years old, but he hasn't fallen off a cliff yet, which makes it somewhat interesting. Najee Harris, the Steelers running back here, he is a 4-yard per carry back. We have 4 years of Najee Harris getting 4 yards per carry, 4.1 yards per carry, 3.8, 3.9. Maybe the offensive infrastructure wasn't good enough for him, but Najee Harris this is who he is. He can handle a workload, but he's going to leave you wanting more in terms of efficiency. If he's cheap, yes. I don't think he wants to be cheap, though. He's kind of made comments saying he wants to get paid. J.K. Dobbins, who we all spent a lot of time on last offseason trying to get to Dallas. At least some of us did. Almost at 1,000 yards on less than 200 carries. Again, good efficiency. Not as good as the 6.0 yard per carry guy that's prime in Baltimore. Injuries are a red flag, but given the depth of the running back draft class, 1-year deals might be the going rate for backs this upcoming offseason. A.J. Dillon, who, remember last year when the Cowboys were like not doing anything for agency, and the report was, don't worry, guys, they're looking at A.J. Dillon. Guys, do you remember that, Chris? I do. Pissed me off. Yeah, Dillon didn't play basically last year. Was hurt, and now he's got like 2 to 3 years removed from his last good season. You want a big bruising back? Sure. I'm not paying him more than the vet minimum. Nick Chubb, the Browns running back. And I am very curious just what the market ends up looking like for Nick Chubb. The reality was, when healthy, this was one of the best backs in football. Remarkably efficient on a high workload. Last year, it was bad. He was not good. Now, he was coming off another devastating injury. I am hopeful he can get back to form, but I am not interested in paying for hopes and optimism for a guy that's going to be in his age 30 season. So if he comes, it's got to be a vet minimum. Again, much like a lot of these backs on the list, I'm going to look for other backs in the draft as well. Javonte Williams. Again, there's a common thread of hurt guys on this list. That was Javonte. He looked promising his first 2 years. He hasn't been the same since that injury. His production has dropped off. He offers some third down pass catching. A lot of these guys, you're hoping that you can fix them. Raheem Mostert, older guy, coming off a bit of an injury plague season. Now, he was more productive in 2023. Had some speed way back when. He is also getting up there in age. And as you'll notice here, the running back market isn't really that great, and you probably just feel better about re-signing Rico Dowdle, don't you? Alexander Mattison is the last name on here. And again, we're kind of going in order of intriguing to less intriguing names. Mattison was bad with the Raiders last year. Now, that offense stunk. Not all his fault, but it was bad. It was bad. He hasn't been over 4 yards per carry in a long time. That is not intriguing to me. A lot of these guys kind of fit, like, remember the Cowboys signed Ronald Jones one year? Bigger names here, but kind of similar, like, sure, I still need help, though, at that spot. Or just keep Rico in the end. Now, we'll have more Cowboys free agency coverage for you right here on the channel. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Let's look at the backup quarterback market. Cooper Rush and Trey Lance are both free agents. Will Grier is there. I don't know if you trust him to be a full-time backup QB. So 2 names I want to throw out there who I think will be very, very cheap. Want to bring back Andy Dalton? Who says no? Probably some of you in the comments. Understandably so. Look, the backup quarterback market is what it is. You're probably not going to throw big money at someone to come be a guy that in theory never plays for you. Although the injuries are a real concern, so you want somebody in there. So I'm looking at guys that have become journeyman QBs who have bounced around the NFL, the Red Rifle. And how about Jacoby Brissett? Has some overlap in Cleveland with in Washington and Miami. It's kind of played in a variety of offensive schemes and has always picked those up pretty quickly. So if you want more than just Dak and Will Grier, some of those names make sense. You want to go wild and throw some extra money at Jameis Winston. It'd be fun if he had to play. It also would be frustrating too because it's Winston. But those are, I think, very cheap options. Let's go to offensive tackle here. And Tyron Smith might retire. I would not be surprised by that. And I'll claim victory if he signs a one-day contract to retire as a Cowboy. He was still playing okay before he got hurt again this past season. And if you want a veteran offensive tackle that's cheap, he could be one of the better ones. If he doesn't retire, I suspect he might. So would you bring back Tyron Smith? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I'll make note. I'm looking at options under the assumption of they don't cut Terrence Steele. If they cut Terrence Steele, let's revisit all of this because that changes your money and changes your need. But if you want a Chuma Adoga upgrade, how about Jedrick Wills, who was a highly touted draft pick and has not lived up to expectations? Maybe you try him on the right side, let him develop there a little bit. He has been disappointing in Cleveland, coming off injuries again. Injuries are a red flag, but if you're paying cheap money for an offensive lineman, you're going to have a big issue with somebody in that capacity. Let's go back-to-back here on these Cardinals offensive linemen. Kelvin Beachum and Jackson Barton. I put them on here because they played with Clayton Adams. I don't want to do any more Chuma Adoga nonsense. Beachum has been a long-time NFL player, I think, as a swing tackle. Now, maybe they trust Awesome Richards for that role, but Beachum could be an option. Jackson Barton is much younger, too, and much taller at 6'7", 302. Very different size frames involved there. Didn't play a lot, but showed some flash. And I suspect that Patrick McCarry might be a little bit too expensive for the Cowboys. But he has been a versatile as all get it off of him. He's played every spot on the offensive line, can be your superstar, super sub, and that means someone will probably pay him a little bit more than what Dallas is open to. One spot I did not mention is tight end. And I've got 5 guys under contract, 3 guys that were on my active roster for the entire season pretty much, and then one guy who played a bit with Princeton Fant. I don't think they're going to spend much money at that spot, outside of maybe a pure special teams guy. So franchise tag question today. Would you use the tag on Osa Odighizuwa? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Would you use the tag on Osa in this cycle? 52% say yes. I would say no. I don't want to pay $23 million for him. I think that's a little bit too much money on that side. Just a touch too high for me. All right, we will stay live as long as these super chats come in. I'll put 2 minutes on the timer. We got 2 in. We'll get to them both here. Red Hurricane. Expect day for the fan-led mock draft. Look forward to it every year. After free agency, we'll do it at some point. TBD on the timing. I'll be sure to announce it a little bit in advance so we can all have some fun. Maybe we try to this year. Depends on what the calendar looks like and how busy the Cowboys are for once in free agency. It's a good question though, Red. Dwayne Jackson, $10. With Overshown not being ready for the start of the 2025 season, think the Cowboys will draft a linebacker in day 2 or day 3, and which linebackers might be available on day 2 or day 3? They all might be there. I don't know how early Jihad Campbell ends up going. Carson Schwessinger. I don't love this linebacker class on that day 2 range. It's kind of not my favorite group. I would adopt the mindset of I would like to sign a veteran, and I can have a veteran starter plus Maurice Leafau, plus Overshown, plus a day 3 pick, plus maybe Damone Clark doesn't end up stinking. I would like to draft someone because I don't think Campbell gets to me at 44, and I don't really love Schwessinger that early, and the class in general is just not my cup of tea. So. All right, we will stay live as long as the supers come in. We'll reset the clock to a minute here with Gizmo 2703. We'll break that down here in just a little bit. We'll put 1 minute on the clock. If the supers come in, we'll stay live, or else we'll just sign off. We'll do other things we have to do, get other shows prepped and ready here on the Cowboys. We're on other chat sports channels, of course, as well. So get those supers in. The $50 beer bong offer is available as well. Gizmo, haven't in a while, but what's the word on Dak's injury? Will he be ready for camp? Absolutely, he'll be ready for camp. He's fine. He'll be fine by then. I know there was one report, I think ESPN somehow mixed up, this was the Sun reporter, mixed up 8 weeks and 8 months for something, which is a big difference. There's a lot of those 8 weeks and 8 months. He's off the crutches. He's already been doing some light training stuff. He'll be ready for off-season workouts, OTAs. The timing is not going to be a big issue there in terms of training camp. He'll be fine, barring a setback, which is a completely different conversation, frankly. All right, we will sign off here. Make sure you guys are subscribed, youtube.com/@CowboysTV, for more free Cowboys videos each and every single day. Next live show coming at you guys on Thursday.